Welcome to Natural Habitat Adventures, Daily Dose of Nature. Today's topic, conservation photography, using cameras to save species. Presented by NatHab expedition leaders Arpita Dutta and Aditya Panda. I'm your host, Rob Mess. Thank you all so much for being here with us today. Over to you, Aditya.
Thank you, Rob. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Natural Habitat Adventures Daily Dose of Nature. Today we have a rather interesting and I must say unusual topic, and I must credit Apita, my fabulous colleague, for suggesting this topic for today's webinar. Before I get into the webinar, let me reintroduce myself for those of you who haven't traveled with me or haven't watched one of my webinars in the past. My name is Aditya Panda, and I have been leading NatHab expeditions in India since 2016. I primarily lead what we call our tiger trips, which are the Grand India Wildlife Adventure, India Tiger Quest, and India Tiger Safari, which is a Photo Pro expedition. I'm based in Eastern India, and when I'm not leading NatHab adventures across India, I keep myself busy with conservation work here in tiger and elephant landscapes. And my colleague today and co-presenter is Arpita Dutta, who is also from Eastern India. Arpita, please introduce yourself to the audience.
Yeah. Thank you, Aditya, and thank you everyone for tuning in today. As I always say, that it's been like it feels great, and I think it gives me a lot of energy and enthusiasm whenever I think there is a webinar and I'll have a lot of viewers and I can talk about a lot of things. And so I have been leading NatHab since 2018. And I do 2 trips, which is Grand India and Nepal and Bhutan. And like Aditya, when I'm not leading trips, I do conservation work, especially with lesser faunas, and also like travel to south, northeast, and the eastern part of India for different conservation work. So it is all about related and mostly focused on turtles and little reptiles. And educating people. So this is all about us. And with that, Aditya, I think I can crack the first thing.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So today's topic is conservation photography. We all know of wildlife photography. We all know nature photography. All of us, when we travel to wilderness areas on the kind of trips that NatHab organizes across the world to amazing wildlife destinations, all of us turn into wildlife photographers in some way or the other. Some of us are serious photographers, some of us are serious amateurs, but all of us take pictures, even if we take them with just our cell phones. And all of us, even when we are not on trips, being nature lovers and wildlife lovers, we go around our neighborhood. We do a lot of photography. We photograph birds and whatever other wildlife we might find around us. But that is wildlife photography or nature photography in a very general sense. What we are going to talk about today is a niche within that, which is increasingly referred to as conservation photography. Arpita, we all do photography in some way or the other, but conservation photography, what exactly is it? How would you define
it? Yeah, Aditya, I mean, whatever you say is so right, that, you know, we travel a lot. We have a passion to take pictures. Somebody has a very, you know, good gadgets like you have. I mean, it's so difficult. Sometimes I feel like, oh gosh, how do all of you even carry that huge camera along with you? Okay, so yeah, that has been always there. But the base part about taking pictures, you know, it's like an art, right, in front of your eyes. And, art has always connected humans with the natural world. Imagine with the Stone Age, like the people who used to live in caves. Still, we have those cave paintings and we can relate that what they used to do, how the animals used to live, all this. So there is a picture to depict. We get the history of from that time till now. And the same happens with this conservation photography as well. So it's I would say that it's all about that nature photography to advocate like wildlife and the natural ecosystem. So if you go to the next slide, so we always think that it is like taking wonderful pictures. There are amazing photographers, especially even I see your pictures, my gosh. And it's always like the perfect background, the perfect lights, the grass. It's a level of things, so the whole picture looks amazing. But when we talk about the conservation photography, it actually doesn't matter the quality of the picture. It's about what your picture is telling or expressing the stories. Just like if the mother and the rhino, baby rhino is there, the calf is there. It's just 1.5 year, near about 1.5 years old. So you can know their activity through it. You know the habitat, whatever is happening, why we need to change, or something which strike, oh, this is not right. Or oh gosh, anticipating, oh my God, the tiger is about to pounce on the kill. So all this thing you take a picture. So it really doesn't matter if it is blur. Imagine a tiger is jumping. It's a blurry image, but that's a documentation that from here it leaped till that height. So that's a kind of a documentation. The elephants over here, actually this place, the picture over here, there's a one area of the grassland was burning where the two rollers are flying to catch the insects. So that's a story. And the elephants were moving out from that area, grazing. So everything has a story to narrate. And with your picture, when you are taking a picture like that, it actually empowers you with some messages hidden in that picture, for which you can describe it in a different way. You can aware people about the situation, about the condition, or you can also aware the people about the threats our environment is facing today. So it's absolutely different when it comes to the conservation photography. I mean, it's just the difference between a better picture and a meaningful picture, which will be an addition towards the science or towards the theory how we are proceeding towards the environment. So of course there is a normal photography and conservation photography. So how do you think that you can describe it?
So from what you said, if we can summarize this in one line or one sentence, then we could probably say that photography that communicates a message of conservation is conservation photography defined, right? So, all of us as photographers, when we try to take pictures of wildlife, when we are doing regular or just general wildlife photography, yes, of course, we are trying to get interesting behavior and good context to the subject. We want pictures that tell a story, but most of the time we are just focusing on getting pretty pictures. We all want very nice, very beautiful, very engaging pictures of wild animals. A portrait of an animal. For example, this bull elephant here, young bull elephant. When I say young, he's fully grown and mature, but he's in his prime. Presents a beautiful picture with the green background. The creases on his skin are prominent. It's a beautiful picture in decent light. But if I go back a little, then you realize that it's not really just a pretty picture. If you take a step back, you see that this bull elephant is actually, unlike what it appears in this picture, it is not actually in some pristine wilderness lording over the land. It is, as we see in this picture, being harassed by a person. It's a wild elephant, but it's being harassed by a person who has approached really close to try and take a picture of the elephant with his cell phone. And there are two stories here. One is of an elephant being, harassed by a person, and there's another story of a person putting himself at risk just for the sake of trying to get a picture of a wild elephant. At any moment, that elephant would turn on the person and kill him, because clearly that person is not within a safe distance of that elephant. And if I move on to the next picture, you get some more context that this elephant, this is a different elephant but from the same larger herd, that these elephants are actually living in a human dominated landscape, and they are what we define as conflict elephants. Now I can tell you the story of these elephants. They are elephants that have lost their habitat, and they're elephants that have become trapped in an increasingly human dominated landscape, to the extent that every single day when these elephants move close to sunset and again early in the morning, when they're moving from whatever little vegetation, whatever little forest there remains, to other areas, like areas where they might find water or areas where they might find food, especially in farmland and places like that, they are mobbed by many people who just find it entertaining to see elephants, and who are harassing them. And besides that, these elephants face a lot of other issues, broken corridors, destroyed habitats, linear infrastructure like railway tracks and highways and roads and power lines and canals passing through their habitat, or what was their habitat, crisscrossing it and destroying it. And pictures like these are a very effective way to communicate that. And in this picture, if you actually look at it, there are two conservation photographs, not one. There is one photograph showing the elephant being harassed by a mob of people. But if you look at the left-hand corner of the picture, there is also a man in a green t-shirt taking a picture of the elephant. Now that man is not part of the mob. He is part of the forest department, and he has been tasked with monitoring these elephants, keeping crowds at bay, and taking pictures of all the bull elephants, because as you know, Arpita, in India, our Indian elephants, it's only the bulls who have tusks. And across the region where these elephants are, they are profiling the bull elephants by taking their pictures, identifying them as individuals, and keeping a record of that, so that when one of these elephants, if and when one of these elephants go missing, because bull elephants, as we all know, are poached for ivory. If and when one of these bulls goes missing, at least we can know, we can look for them, and we can know that there's been a problem. So the difference between conservation photography and regular photography, again, to repeat what you've said, Arpita, is that in regular photography, you're just trying to show an animal. In regular wildlife photography, you're trying to show an animal or a bird in its most beautiful possible self, with a nice background, a nice frame, where purely the beauty of the animal becomes your number one focus. But as a conservation photographer, the prettiness of a picture is secondary. The main purpose is to tell a story, to shoot pictures that encapsulate an issue, and where the picture shows the animal or its habitat in context of a conservation issue. And to do that, you do not need a fancy camera. You can do that with any camera, with your cell phone or any cheap little camera. The purpose is the content. It's not the quality of the content or the beauty of the content. And often, Arpita, we have seen such photographs being used in citizen science programs. These have been photographers who do a lot of documentation, or just go around regularly photographing birds and other wildlife in areas around them. They've contributed a lot to citizen science, and as someone who herself contributes so much to citizen science, Arpita, I'm sure you have a lot to tell us about it.
So I think this citizen scientist is a word which have been there from the even before the 19th century, because while Charles Darwin was working on his evolution research, he actually gathered a lot of information from the amateurs, naturalists, or from general public, though they have written letters or field notes to him. But it has been there. I mean, they were not scientists. They were not related to the science directly, but they have sent their observations to him. And after collecting all those informations, he actually put up his work with evolution, and we know the result, what it is. So that he has mentioned that my knowledge is all coming from every part of the world. It's not only from one point or from one state, or not also from one region. It's about the entire world, with the entire population, whoever has the affinity towards nature, wildlife, conservation, thinking about the ecosystem or the traits, climate change, anything, any related topic to nature, they can be a citizen scientist and contribute a large amount of valuable information just by observation or by gathering pictures. Nowadays, it's easier to get picture. So there is a level of involvement into it, that how you are producing it. Just taking a picture and then keeping it in the hard drive, it's good. Sometimes I feel that I go back, maybe in 2006 or 2005, whatever I got, I keep on seeing. I mean, I do have the CDs till date, or the floppies were there. So those you get to know that, or printed pictures, we just turn and see. But then you find that there are so many informations, because imagine, Aditya, in 20 years, so many things have changed. Even the area where we are working now, imagine 20 years back, things were so different. The population density, the animals which were there. So if we are producing, or if we are giving out our observation to some particular areas where the researchers can further work with it, can really help. And that is, we all have nowadays with the population, we all have at least a basic phone, basic smartphone with minimum basic camera quality, or can be a good camera quality. And you have inbuilt GPS. So while taking a pictures, you can actually activate your GPS so that you get the exact location, date, and everything. And then we have internet almost available everywhere. So you can definitely upload that to few of the website, few of the apps which I have given here, which I use, and then we have enough storage. So at a go, like whenever we are traveling somewhere, either on a holiday or even at our backward, on my terrace, few days back I got your ant mimic mantis. I was very surprised. It's in the middle of the city. First I thought it's an ant, and then I said no, it's a mantis. It was tiny, and I was like, I was overjoyed because I got a mantis in my terrace, which was, I didn't think about it. So this is all about. So I posted that this is the location and this is how you get. So this can actually add up a lot of things. And the best part of it is, being a citizen scientist, you have your curiosity on why this is happening, how this is happening, and with that you are contributing like a database to the biodiversity portals or areas where people are working. Last in 2022 there are only 1 million paper got published, which is only on the medical science. That's it. So imagine when we bring all them together, the number would reach so high. So basically, in citizen science, you observe, you see what you are getting from anywhere, and from there you can, any of the apps, or if you know some better apps, you can post your pictures with an observation with date, time and location. So those are like the data. So you never know in that region whether you have seen it before, or maybe it's a new discovery out there. And even after 30 years, maybe we will feel that, okay, this got extinct. We didn't see, we don't see this species anymore, but you have the record. You have given that record to the science for the research. So I think it's a beautiful thing to do with your photographs, not just by the hard drive that how does it look, but is also a huge contribution towards the science. So you can definitely try that. And if you have to get more information, I would recommend this book, The Field Guide to Citizen Science. You have a lot of process. Now we cannot discuss because it's a lot more, you have to explain a lot. So you can refer this book as well. And these apps are very friendly apps. So you can actually go by that and and contribute more.
Yeah, and I really liked that bit you said about comparing data from today, 30 years later. So as a naturalist or a citizen scientist, or just as somebody interested in birds and wildlife, even if you're photographing what you think today are common species in your neighborhood or wherever you travel to, even if you upload those as your regular checklists on your citizen science app or portal of choice, don't think of it as unnecessary or unimportant because these species might be very common today. 30 years from now, they might not be common. Nobody in India thought vultures, for example, nobody in the 80s would have ever imagined that vultures would one day be near extinct in this country, or house sparrows would be so endangered. So that's a really good thing about citizen science initiatives, that we are recording our natural history around us, either where we live or in places that we travel to, as it is today. This is literally archiving, recording our wildlife for posterity. So it's no matter how common a species, it is important listed down. Speaking of that, Arpita, speaking of recording common species around us, the opposite of that which is finding rare species or unexpected species around us, is also something that conservation photography has played a big role in recent times. I know it's a very disturbing, very sad picture here on the screen. In fact, this animal is a striped hyena. They're very rare to see, unlike the spotted hyenas in Africa, which most of you must have seen on your visits there. The striped hyena is a very elusive creature that does not live in packs. It's mostly solitary. And there are many naturalists who go on a regular basis to areas where striped hyenas exist but have never seen them. And this was my first ever sighting of a wild striped hyena back in 2007 or 8. And unfortunately, this is how I had found it. But this slide is not about roadkills. Roadkills, of course, are a topic that we are going to talk about later in this webinar. This is about finding species that are not expected to be in certain areas as a result of people going out with cameras looking for wildlife. In India, our environment and wildlife legislation is such that for any infrastructural work to happen, for any it could be government work or a private initiative, but for any large development to happen, the proposal for such a development must first go through what is known as an environment impact assessment, or an EIA, which is a procedure that looks at the potential impact of that project on the local environment in the region where it is about to happen. And if the project passes that, then it is approved. A lot of times it is approved with many conditions that the project proponent might have to make up or compensate for whatever environmental damage they're doing by doing, several compensatory things like planting trees in an area, or developing an ecosystem, a wetland ecosystem, or anything of that sort. Now, the story behind this picture is that this picture was taken on a highway that had been under the process of being expanded. It used to be a 2-lane highway, and it was being expanded to 6 lanes. And before a project of that scale is undertaken, it must have been mandatory for it to have gone through an environment impact assessment. But like it happens in many countries across the world, a lot of times dishonesty and corruption step into matters like these, and environment impact assessments are not conducted honestly and sincerely the way they should be. So a lot of governments and a lot of powerful business interests that invest in such infrastructure will often just hire a consultancy who will just skim through a token environment impact assessment report and pass the project. So this was back in 2007 or 8 when digital cameras were becoming popular, but they were not as widespread or common as they are today. And after this highway had been expanded, it was discovered that hyenas exist in the area, and it was discovered only after they began to find roadkills once the speed of the traffic increased. Now, the usual procedure in India is that if you have protected species in an area and you have infrastructure development happening there, you have to put in a lot of mitigation measures in place to ensure that these species can move around freely and safely without getting harmed or killed by the infrastructure being developed. So, in this case, that did not happen. But today, increasingly, because people are going out and about, regular birders and wildlife photographers are going around everywhere with digital cameras looking to find wildlife. We are discovering a lot of protected species in areas where they're not expected to be, in areas that are human-dominated landscapes, in areas where you wouldn't expect something like a leopard or a hyena or a wolf, to exist. So, thanks to conservation photography, we are being able to discover these species in areas where we might have overlooked them, and that data is now being used to control and contain the scale at which infrastructural development is happening in those regions. And similarly, conservation photography is also being used and has always been an excellent tool for highlighting conservation issues. In this picture, you see a ranger in a tiger reserve in eastern India called Simlipal. He is being seen here in the middle of a tiger estimation exercise. This was a long time ago again, and before camera traps and other modern estimation technologies were brought into tiger estimation. This is back when tigers used to be counted by taking plaster casts of their tracks. This gentleman has a tiger pug mark or track cast in plaster of Paris in one of his hands, and in his other hand he has a spent arrow. So, just showing how even in the middle of a protected area where tigers are struggling to survive, bushmeat hunting is such a big problem. The arrow had been used by poachers to hunt deer and other wild prey, which form the prey base of tigers. So, be it discovering species in new areas or highlighting conservation issues, photography has a big role to play. And, that's from the point of view of direct conservation issues, but also from a point of view, Arpita, of just conservation biology or natural history or the science of taxonomy, where we are continuously discovering new species, where we are continuously identifying new subspecies of species that we already know. Photography is playing a very, very key role. And you here are seen in a picture with a discovery of your own. So why don't you tell us about that?
Honestly, Aditya, I'm sorry. This citizen science, because I don't come from a conventional science background study, right? It's very different. It's all about the experience I have been. But most of all my journals or all my things are mostly depend during, it happened just during my working time when I work with conservation. So I remember in 2019, in April, I went to Meghalaya. There is a place called Siju, and that has a limestone habitat where you have a wildlife sanctuary there. And while on a walk in 2019, I got this spider, this red one, whatever, though the picture is very bad because I just with my mobile phone. And that time looking at it, I thought, oh, this seems to be a new one. And then, as usual, I'm telling everyone today about the citizen science, about the contribution, but I completely lost it. Like I forgot after coming over here. Recently in 2022, I have posted this picture somewhere. and there was a researcher like who is a arachnologist. So I mean, he called me and he said that from where did you get this spider? So I said this is the location. I gave the GPS, I gave the habitat description and all, everything given, and that's exactly turned out to be a new species. And yeah, it published in April 2023. Imagine 4 years. I mean, 4 years later, I don't know whether now if you go there, you will get to see this species or not, but it was a sudden thing to come out. And of course, it's very dear to me is the, because, you know, for the smaller faunas, you have so many insects, frogs, and this thing, it keeps on coming, even geckos and reptiles, which is very easy. But adding another species of freshwater turtle or tortoise to Indian checklist, it was a big thing. So with this, we got a picture suddenly. I mean, at night, I was in Guwahati with two more scientists. We were just having a decision, and we got this picture. And I said, gosh, this is not a unique species. From where did you get it? And that person just replied, this is from the northeastern part, which is Arunachal Pradesh. He got it from one of the forests out there. Trust me, Aditya, that night we booked the train from Guwahati. We reached there, we saw the species, and we found out that this is not new to science, but because of the Indo-Malaysian, Indo-Malayan border, it's from that side part. But this one in India is the first to see. So yeah, we were like super happy about it. So it got actually new to the science. And not only by the photograph, you can only describe like species, subspecies. You can of course the range extension as well. I still remember I have a bamboo pit viper from a part of Bengal, which was not described before. So by the photograph, we got to know that, okay, that's a range extension, because, you know, it has so much thing to do. Because of climate change, animals are migrating, even regional migrations are happening. They are moving towards the high altitude, like high elevated climate. So for that, if you're seeing an animal somewhere else, you know that why things are happening. So it is important in that way, the range extension and species. And it doesn't stop over there. With photography, you can actually, maybe your observation can be very new to science as well. Just like if you go to the next picture. So this is taken, you know, where? In Meghali Sarai, in Chitwan, when where we do the Nepal Bhutan trip in Chitwan, where we stay in Meghali Sarai. It's when I was working there that time. So at night, suddenly, I mean, we were walking by on the path, and there was this one of our F&B guy. He told, because he was very scared of snakes, he said, Arpita, there is a snake, and it is doing something. I was like, doing something? Okay, I got my cam, and he couldn't figure out, because, you know, the frog and the eye was pretty like parallel together, and he couldn't figure out in the dark. So I came close and I saw that it's a buff striped killback, which is a diurnal snake. Generally, it hunts. We all know that it hunts during like in the daytime, and at night you hardly get to see buff striped killback moving here and there, which you generally get to see in the morning. And then you get to see it hunting at night, just like behaving like the nocturnal species. So I took the picture. I have the full documentation till it's completely swallowed the frog. And then I started finding that it's a nocturnal feeding behavior of a diurnal snake. And then I found that there is no observation which have been reported. Definitely, it is not the first time they are having. They have been doing this, but nobody, even maybe few people have seen it, but they never, you know, contributed towards, you know, the science that this is an observation I have noticed. And this is the first observation which have been reported for this particular snake having a nocturnal feeding. So it's all about, you know, this photography you can use it in such different ways and variations, starting from new species to subspecies to range extension to your observation. We are gathering so much information, and which are going to be very valuable maybe in another 50 or 100 years,
or sooner.
because climate is changing so quick.
That's true.
So yeah,
new species and new behavior, and even counting our wildlife and estimating populations and monitoring our wildlife. Arpita, that did you know that the All India Tiger Estimation exercise that takes place every 4 years in India is the world's largest biodiversity survey?
yes,
In terms of the number of person days put in and the amount of area
yeah,
and the amount of data gathered, it's the largest biodiversity survey in the world, and we do it every 4 years. So photography need not necessarily be done with a camera in our hands. Trail cameras, which there was a time when trail cameras were the exclusive tool of wildlife biologists and scientists. But today you can buy a trail camera even on Amazon and have it delivered to your home, and you can put it up in your backyard and see what wildlife moves around in your area when you are sleeping at home. And these trail cameras perform a huge role in India's wildlife population estimation exercises, particularly with big cats, tigers, and leopards. We all know that tigers and leopards have individual coat patterns. The stripes on no two tigers are identically the same, and similarly, the rosettes on no two leopards are identically the same. Every single tiger or leopard has its own unique coat pattern, and utilizing that, we have devised ways in which to estimate their populations, where we set out camera traps or trail cameras in a set density. When I say a set density, I mean, say, a particular number of camera traps in per 100 square kilometers, and this set density of camera traps is allowed to remain for a particular period of time. Longer than that, and you are likely to overestimate, and shorter than that, you're likely to underestimate. And these trail cameras are put in pairs along trails and road crossings and streams and other areas where tigers and leopards are likely to walk by. And you put these cameras in pairs on both sides of these trails so that you get pictures of both flanks of the animal. And at the end of the exercise, you gather all these pictures together and put them through a software, and the software, like reading barcodes, will tell you exactly how many tigers and leopards you have. So that's just one of the many examples that exist around the world of how photography is used in wildlife population estimation. And similarly, on a regular basis, just to monitor the state of wildlife in a particular area, we use trail cameras. A lot of us, a lot of our guests who travel with us to areas like Kanha and Bandhavgarh and Kaziranga and Ranthambore have seen these trail cameras set out while going out on game drives. And these cameras are a really useful tool in monitoring wildlife, not only wildlife, the species present, the frequency at which you track these animals on camera traps, but also their behavior, their breeding status, their hunting status, and also if there are poachers or any other intruders in the area. And thanks to this, we have a very, very holistic database of tigers across India, where each animal has its own unique identification number. And a lot of times, even without, trail cameras still do miss animals a lot of times. Sometimes there are tigers that might not be captured on a trail camera. And we have actually had instances where our guests have photographed a tiger, and then we've tried to identify it as an individual and found that it does not exist in the park's database and that it's a new animal. Isn't that amazing, Arpita?
Yeah, true. I mean, so it's like amazing to think. First of all, I mean, when the guest helps out, I mean, they also don't know, we also don't know, and suddenly when you see it, you know that's a new one in that particular territory, or maybe it is not from the tourism zone.
Yeah,
that's the reason why we couldn't get it. So even the migration, suppose from Panna to Kanha or Panna
yeah.
to Ban, if they are traveling, you actually can get the calculation that from there to, I mean, it has traveled such a long distance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And another area where conservation photography is very, very useful and has swayed many a court case, many public interest litigations is by providing evidence. Like I was mentioning earlier when we were looking at that slide with the poor hyena that had been roadkilled. Conservation photography not only finds us species in areas where they're not known to exist, but it is also a tool that can be used to highlight issues that have, such as forest fires, issues that have been ignored or neglected by administrations. And India is a very we are a country that loves to argue. We love going to court. We love filing cases in court against issues that might be bothering us. And public interest litigation for environment and wildlife is an area that is very, very active in this country. And a lot of these cases have been given a favorable verdict towards the conservation of environment and wildlife by using evidence of these issues through conservation photography. So that is another area where conservation photography plays a big role. And speaking of litigation and evidence and highlighting issues, bringing awareness to the public at large, Arpita, is another area where photography has always played a massive role. I mean, nothing probably affects people or sways people's minds and opinions like a powerful photo. And that's something I'd love to hear your thoughts on.
Yeah, so of course, I mean, this public awareness and communication, it's been how? Yeah, it's been near about more than 20 years, I guess, which has been happening. And I think I got amazing result by approaching to people or to spread awareness in a different way. Suppose imagine, you have to be like, you have to make them captivating to listen to you. It's like that, especially when I'm working with the children, and because they are the future, you have to know the first thing which you need is a wonderful picture, which first thing they would see. And so many times I have heard like, that tone, you feel that, yeah, they got in, and now you get the hold of them and you talk about that. So exactly when we talk about conservation awareness and science communication, conservation awareness is what we were talking about, like how you are awareing people through your pictures or through other things. But science communication has a different value to it, or different ways to it, which is like the information. Whatever information you are giving, that has to be really proper, what you are taking and what you are giving. So you have to like have a proper knowledge for it, or a training for it, that what you are providing is very right, so that people don't get wrong thing. Educate whatever you know, educate others, so that the spread, you can actually reach out to a lot of people. And then of course raise the awareness. So like you and me, if we are talking to 10 people, 10 people can talk to another 1,000. So this is how you are encouraging. And with that, it's a different communication process. And when we talk about the communication science, if you go to the next slide, yeah, so it's like we have to ensure the kind of audience we need, or we need to approach. So first is, suppose for us in India, it is very important to reach out to the local communities, to make them understand who really, who stay in very close proximity to the protected areas. And then the authorities, which is the forest department, you work with them. And of course you do a lot of street plays and all, where it is visible, where people are getting it, some visuals are coming. And then of course as a guide, I think that is another wonderful way to spread the awareness, and of course the communication science. So it's more about what like choose your audience, because you know your particular region, like whom you need to target. So choose your audience, create your own data, or like a movie, or just a presentation how we are giving. And why is it important? For us, it is the deforestation, poaching, and all these things are related to it. So we are focused on the topic we need to. But in everywhere region, there are some other important things. And of course, for that, you can create a network. So mostly in one line, the communication science has to be very specific, and it has to be given properly. That is all about. And there are, of course, there are ethics and rules and regulations, which we both can discuss quickly. Yeah.
And that is something that all of us can do, including our guests, including our audience. I'll list this slide again when the Q&A session is going on, because we are running out of time. But before we move into that, I'll let you quickly tell us of 3 success stories of conservation photography.
Yeah, so this is really like conservation photography has really taken a turn, and for last 20 years, 30 years, because we are gathering more data. And with that, in 1951, Aditya, this is a very close, like I really admire this person and the whole story about it. He was very young that time when he went to that Nonsuch Island, which is there in Bermuda's island. And there, this Bermuda petrel, which is a bird, shorebird, and it has been thought to be extinct in 1600. Imagine, after almost 300 years, he got to see a few pairs of petrels, and then he is the man who has like devoted his life to save this bird from being extinct. If anyone would like to know about it, you can just go with Bermuda petrel. You will get the whole story, as we really don't have much time right now. And the next one, why don't you share the next one? I know, but go ahead with this, and then I'll end up with this.
Well, it's my favorite crocodilian, and one of the most ancient crocodilian species in the world called the gharial, which is specialized fish-eating crocodile. And the gharial is highly endangered. There are believed to be less than 1,000 individuals of adult breeding age. And it was once found all across the river basins of northern India and Nepal. And every major river system in northern India, but they began going extinct from most of them. Their range decreased very, very quickly. And in the 20th century, there were only a handful left. And, you know, one of the areas we traveled to, both of us lead trips there, on the Grand India Wildlife Adventure, and I'm talking about the Kaziranga National Park, has, you know, it's on the bank of the Brahmaputra River. And in Kaziranga, the gharial was believed to have gone extinct about 50 years ago. And no efforts have been made to reintroduce them since. But in the very same area, Arpita, where we take our guests to go looking for Gangetic dolphins, this picture of a gharial was taken in March 2022. And that was the first evidence of gharial in the Brahmaputra in 50 years. And, you know, after that, the gharial again vanished. Nobody found it again. But what it did tell us is that the gharial could possibly be back in the Brahmaputra, and that the Brahmaputra could potentially be a very, very viable site for reintroducing gharials.
Yeah, this is, but for one information, Aditya, in 2022, during November, we found a gharial where we were on a survey, which is in the core area of Kaziranga, which is an opening of Brahmaputra tributary, where we have got to see it. But again, there is the thing, before we could take the picture, it went in. And of course, you cannot miss out gharial. I mean, if you see it, right? But we don't have that evidence, though we have those, you know, it was basking, we have those markings, but we got to see it. So it has been reported already. And so this is all about like bringing back the species, right? Imagine right now, Aditya, I'm sure you know, and we all know about it because we are working on conservation on the field, that wildlife trafficking has become like it's really getting higher day by day, more than your human trafficking and narcotics. I think all wildlife trafficking has taken. So with this pangolin, this is a Chinese pangolin, and we got a picture, like the poacher was sending it to someone for willingness to sell this, and he was asking that whether you need the scales or you need the live animals. So somehow we got to know that from the source, and then it was a big conversation with the poacher. Like I was pretending like you know, I'm the buyer and stuff. All these things were there, and then we could reach out to that person. He's a village person. I mean, he just knew that pangolin is very costly. So that's how the things went, and we got to know we could save this pangolin, and then we release it back into the wild. So you never know, maybe you are traveling all around the world, there are animal parts, there are other you know, animal related things which have been like keeping as a pet trade. So if you take a picture, you know that, you know, whether it is illegal or legal, or you can spread out these informations that really helps to save the life. I mean, not only other things, to save the life. That's a big thing. I think of what we need is the awareness, you know, because awareness is the most important thing, and awareness can be done through photo. One of the thing is photography, which is a very powerful tool for conservation nowadays.
Absolutely. And I'm afraid we're running out of time, but with that, Rob, I'll ask you to tell us what questions you have for us. And thank you everyone for listening to this unusual but interesting topic.
Thank you both so much. Now, before we start in with the question and answer session, I would like to remind everyone that you can submit your questions via the question field in your control panel. So, is it possible to dye the elephant's tusks to help identify them and to help protect them from poachers?
Well, it's much easier to take pictures of them, and individual elephants have unique tusk patterns, and using those tusk patterns, you can identify them. So if you have pictures of them, you can identify them anyway. So there is no real need to dye them. But if you're asking, if the question is from the point of view of tracing tusks back by dyeing them, well, it's going to be logistically a very, very big challenge to try and capture every individual wild elephant and dye its tusks.
So going back to the beginning, when you had that picture of the man who was too close to the elephant, is there somebody who works at the park who can tell them to stay away? And if there is there any enforcement? Are they ever fined for this kind of behavior?
Yeah, so this wasn't in a park. This was in what we define as human-dominated landscape. These are elephants that are outside of protected areas and protected habitats. And they're outside of protected habitats because the habitats that used to exist in those areas have been destroyed. So these elephants are now, over time, they have become increasingly stranded in an area where their habitat has been depleted because of deforestation, and at the same time the area around them has changed due to the growth of human infrastructure and urbanization. But yes.
Oh, sorry, they have actually interrupted corridors nowadays almost everywhere.
Yeah,
fragmented forest. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, but yeah. Even so, there are personnel of the forest department, and even the local police department is supposed to keep crowds and elephants away from each other, and they do that to some extent, but clearly a lot is still left to do.
So if I'm on vacation and I'm taking pictures of these animals, is it best to wait till I get home to post these images? And how is it easy to remove the GPS location from it at a later time at a different location?
Arpita, would you like to take that?
First question I got, what about the GPS thing? Can you come again, Ro?
Is that something that you can block or change later on so that people don't know where exactly you were?
Okay. So for see, if we have to like go for a citizen science, we have to put a lot of information to it. Otherwise, it will be difficult if you are not putting the locations, because that is one of the important factor, and especially which I was mentioning, that because of climate change, so much of local migrations are happening, or you have found a different thing. So for science reason, you need to have all the informations. That would be good. And you can just, because without the location, Aditya, can you put it in a better way, that without the location, this is like a homeless, it will be, I mean.
But if I understand the question right, if you have turned on the GPS thing on your phone or your camera, you can still delete that information from pictures of yourself or the pictures that you wish to share on social media, while still retaining it on the pictures that you wish to share on the citizen science apps or portals. So yes, that is possible. But of course, if as Arpita was explaining, when you put pictures on citizen science portals or apps, do include the GPS information, because that is very, very important information.
Great, thank you for addressing that. Thank you. So if I'm using a cell phone to take photos at night, is there a specific setting that I should use that will help me clarify these images so that when I post them, we know what animal that we're posting?
Well, you can use a flashlight or an artificial light, car headlamps, or the camera's inbuilt flash to try and get better pictures. There are night modes on camera on phone cameras, but night modes are okay for taking pictures of sceneries and landscapes and cities and things like that, but they're not really good for taking pictures of animals. So what you can do is have some sort of artificial light to help you.
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, that's going to be the last question that we do have for today. So I'd like to throw it back to you guys for your closing comments.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, you
Go ahead,
close it. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. It was wonderful to have you all on this webinar. I hope you enjoyed the webinar and found something to learn, and will start using your photography and your cameras also for the purpose of conservation and not just for getting the pretty pictures. Arpita?
Yeah, and Aditya already thanked, and of course, thank you so much. I guess Aditya, if you would have said like, I think Aditya has done one webinar on how you take pictures with your mobile phone. Over there, you might get all the specifications that might help you. Now, when you go to the field, if you have that conservation in mind, you can listen to that webinar. That I think that will help. And thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much, Rob, for hosting it today. It's been wonderful. Thank you.
Arpita and Aditya, thank you both so much for taking the time to present for us today. And I'd also like to thank everyone who tuned in today. Now, if you'd like information on how you can travel with NatHab, please give us a call at the number on your screen, or you can send us an email at info@nathab.com. Our adventure specialists are happy to help you out. Join us tomorrow for our next Daily Dose of Nature. You can check out this week's lineup, including registration links, on our website at nathab.com/webinars. We did record today's presentation, and we will have the replay available on our website soon. With that, I will conclude today's webinar. Goodbye, everybody. We'll see you next time.